My sister mocked me for being a warehouse worker. So I built a business and she begged to work for me. But my answer left her in tears of regret. I've never been on a plane. Let's start there. I mean, technically, I've been inside a plane once during a high school field trip to the Aviation Museum, where we took photos inside an old Delta fuselage, but I've never been above the clouds, never been offered pretzels by someone in polyester, never reclined a seat into someone's knees, never sat on a runway for 2 hours wondering why the pilot sounds like he's ordering Starbucks over the intercom. My sister, she's been to 31 countries. How do I know that exact number? Because she posted it on Instagram with a caption that read, 31 countries, 0 regrets, over a photo of her doing yoga in front of the Taj Mahal. I was tagged in the comments, miss you bro, you'd love Morocco. At the time, I was ankle deep in a puddle behind the warehouse trying to retrieve a pallet that had slipped off a forklift and was currently floating toward the drain like a cardboard Titanic. So yeah, our lives were different. Her name's Ava. She got all the good vowels, all the attention too. When we were kids, she was the free spirit and I was the steady one. Translated from parent speak, that means she does whatever she wants and we clap. He follows rules and we ask if he's doing enough. Ava dyed her hair pink at 15 and started a blog about eco-conscious henna. My mom told her she was expressing herself. I wore the same hoodie 3 days in a row and got a lecture about letting yourself go. By the time she hit 20, Ava had dropped out of college to find her inner compass. I meanwhile worked double shifts at Johnson's Freight and Packaging because my compass was called rent. The warehouse wasn't glamorous. Think giant concrete box with no AC, the hum of fluorescent lights and a break-room fridge that made sounds like it was trying to escape the building. I loaded trucks, broke down shipments, did inventory. My knees hated me, so did my back, but the pay was steady-ish and nobody cared what brand your shoes were, just whether you showed up. And I always showed up on time, ready, responsible, boring. Ava sent postcards from Bali. I sent invoices to accounts payable. My parents still acted like she was the family prodigy. At one dinner, the one I could attend that month, my dad raised a glass to Ava following her dreams. Meanwhile, I had just gotten promoted to inventory lead. Not a word. It wasn't jealousy, at least not at first. It was just this growing ache like I was watching everyone else run towards something beautiful while I was stuck holding the door open for them. Even Grandpa was quiet about it. Not cruel, just distant. He lived 5 blocks from the warehouse in the same house he built after the war. Once when I was little, he let me hold his hammer while he fixed the deck. That was our bonding moment. Since then, he mostly waved from his porch like I was the mailman, not his grandson. Then, one Thursday afternoon, everything shifted. It was mid-July and the warehouse was a sauna with forklifts. I was stacking boxes of wholesale toilet paper, glamorous. I know sweat sticking my shirt to my ribs when I heard someone call out, "Is Owen here?" Now, normally people don't visit the warehouse. We're not exactly open to the public. So when I turned and saw an old man in suspenders holding a clipboard like it was Excalibur, I nearly dropped a box of Charmin on my foot. It was Mr. Aldridge, my grandpa's best friend. The guy was like a walking encyclopedia of elbow grease, owned a workshop downtown, tinkered with everything from vintage radios to classic cars. I hadn't seen him in years. "Oh," he grinned. "You still got those strong shoulders, or did the city soften you?" I blinked. "Sir, I work in a warehouse." He laughed. "Perfect. I need help lifting a drill press the size of your average horse. You busy this weekend?" That's how it started. No pitch, no promise, just a gruff old man in dusty boots asking for help like I was still 12 and full of energy. "Sure," I said. Because why not? My Saturday plans involved laundry and disappointment. What I didn't know as I stood there sweating through a company polo with a barcode on the sleeve was that this was the moment everything changed. Not the yoga photo, not Ava's 10,000th hashtag, not my dad's toast. Just an old man with a clipboard and a rusty smile offering me something no one else had in years. A chance. Saturday morning hit me like a box of bolts. I was used to early mornings. Warehouse life trains you to wake up before the sun and function on caffeine and back pain. But this was different. Instead of punching in to scan barcodes and break down pallets, I was headed to Aldridge's workshop, a place that smelled like oil iron and ambition. The man had turned his garage into a kingdom of gears. When I pulled up, he was already outside fiddling with a rusted table saw, like it owed him money. The shop behind him looked like a movie set from a film called American Ingenuity, the sequel. He handed me gloves and a pair of safety goggles that might have once belonged to Thomas Edison. You any good with your hands? He asked. I shrugged. I mean, I've held a broom and a barcode scanner, he snorted. That'll do. We started with the drill press. The thing was ancient, probably older than both of us combined, and built like it was meant to survive a nuclear blast. We hoisted it up, adjusted belts, tightened bolts. I didn't understand half of what he was saying, but I listened closely. I'd been starved of mentorship so long, even machine noise felt like conversation. Ever use a lathe? He asked halfway through. Not unless it's hidden inside a shipping pallet. Perfect, time to learn. That's how it went for hours. No small talk, no family gossip, just lessons, movements, instructions. Some barked, some muttered, and me trying not to mess it up. By lunch, my forearms were sore and my brain was rebooting every 5 minutes. But I felt something not inspired, that's too clean. More like the sense that for once someone was showing me how to build, not just lift. We sat on milk crates eating egg salad sandwiches from a cooler that probably predated Google. Mr. Aldridge sipped sweet tea from a thermos and finally looked at me without squinting. You're better at this than you think, he said. I blinked. At breaking bolts, at paying attention, he said. You listen like someone who's had to figure things out the hard way. I didn't know how to respond, so I just nodded and chewed. That's when he asked it. You working tomorrow, Sunday? I said, Nah, warehouse is closed. You are now, he said. You're working here. I almost choked on a piece of sandwich. Wait, like seriously? Seriously, he said. I need help, and you need out of that place before your spine turns into a corkscrew. I wasn't sure if I should laugh or cry. No interview, no resume. Just trust. It felt fake, like a prank show. But when I showed up the next day and the day after that, it was real. He paid in cash at first, modest but honest, and more importantly, he taught welding, milling, sandblasting, custom fabrication, stuff I didn't even know existed outside YouTube tutorials. Every time I thought, I'm probably going to break this, he just grunted, handed me a wrench and said, then fix it. It wasn't long before I started asking questions. What's this lever do? Why is that tool different? Can I try cutting that angle? He never laughed at me. Never rolled his eyes, just explained. It felt like someone had unscrewed the cap on my brain and poured in confidence. Ava called around that time. Hey, bro, she said. How's the grind? She was in Santorini, based on the mosaic backdrop and sea breeze in the background. I told her I'd started helping Mr. Aldridge. She laughed. The old dude who fixed Grandpa's porch swing. Yeah, I said. Turns out he runs a shop. I'm learning fabrication. Pause. Oh, like metal stuff. Yeah, like actual skills. Another pause. Well, just don't let him turn you into one of those weird guys who names their tools. I already named the bandsaw, I said. It's Carl now. She snorted. You're such a dork. I smiled because that was the first time in years she sounded slightly off balance, like she didn't know where to place me anymore. I wasn't the warehouse guy anymore, and she didn't know what to do with that. 3 weeks in, I stopped checking the time. Not because I was slacking, the opposite, really. The days flew by like they owed me money. One moment I'd be sorting scrap aluminum, the next I'd be 3 hours into a welding project with my phone still in airplane mode from the night before. Aldridge never micromanaged. He just pointed at metal and said, make it less ugly. Sometimes it was rebuilding old tools. Other times, custom parts for clients who said things like, this needs to fit in a 1968 Mercury Cougar, but not look like it does. I had no idea what that meant. Aldridge just winked and said, that's where you come in. Every job was a puzzle, and somehow my warehouse-trained brain, built for pattern stacking repetition, fit right in. It was like solving Tetris but with sparks and steel and the occasional risk of losing a finger. The moment I realized I wasn't just helping, I was good, came on a Wednesday. We were working on a client's custom smoker. Big beast of a project, half barbecue, half spaceship. Aldridge had gone to the back to grab fittings, and I noticed the measurement didn't align. Just by eye, I rechecked with calipers. Yep, off by a hair. So I fixed it, realigned. The braces welded a cleaner seam, smoothed the corners like it was second nature. When Aldridge came back, he just stared for a second. You do that? He asked. Yeah, it was off. He ran a hand over the weld, nodded, said nothing for a beat. Then you ever think about doing this full time? I blinked. I thought I was. I mean your own shop, he said. Brand clients, real work. No warehouse safety vests, no punching clocks for people who don't know your name. It hit me like a dropped anvil. Me, a guy who used to microwave dinner in a plastic container labeled employee use only. Now being asked if I wanted to run my own shop, it felt impossible. And yet I didn't laugh it off because somewhere between welding joints and sweeping sawdust, I changed. I walked different, stood straighter, talked like someone who knew things. Confidence hadn't shown up all at once. It had arrived like rust, slow creeping permanent. That night I started sketching logos in a dollar store notebook. Carter Works was too formal. Owen Metalworks sounded like a bad tattoo shop. Eventually I settled on Groundline, simple, clean, like the stuff I built. I didn't tell anyone yet, not even Aldridge, especially not Ava. She was in Vietnam at the time, working remotely. Story highlights. I say working remotely loosely. She posted a pic of her laptop open on a bamboo dock with the caption, "Emails and eels." Meanwhile, I was welding in 95 degrees with sparks in my sock, but it felt real tangible. Mine. Aldridge helped me set up a website. He didn't do the internet, but he knew a guy who did. Some retired Navy welder with a tech hobby and a love for grilled corn. I took photos of our past projects, typed descriptions like, I wasn't terrified of sounding dumb, and hit publish. And then something weird happened. People noticed. An old client shared the site on Facebook. A mechanic messaged me about a custom bumper. A guy from the hardware store asked if I could make signage brackets. It was trickling in slowly, but it was happening. That Friday, Aldridge handed me an envelope. "Your first solo job," he said. "He wants a custom steel fire pit with engraved initials. He's proposing to his girlfriend." I stared at the note. "Wait, he's trusting me with a proposal fire pit." "You're the only one he saw in the shop last week," Aldridge said. "You look like someone who gave a damn." I swallowed, then got to work. 2 days later, I delivered a 32-inch round pit with hand-cut lettering star patterns and a brushed steel finish that took 3 hours of sanding in my favorite flannel sleeve. The client cried, legit cried, then paid me double the quote. I called Aldridge that night. He didn't pick up. Instead, I found a note taped to the shop door the next morning. "Gone fishing. Not a metaphor. You've got the keys now. Don't screw it up." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so I did both. Then unlocked the shop and started designing the business card I didn't think I'd ever need. When Ava finally flew home, she brought souvenirs, a tan and a brand new accent that sounded vaguely European, but changed, depending on who she was talking to. "It's been transformative," she told our parents, holding a cup of imported tea like it was holy water. "I've just grown, you know." She wore flowy linen pants, posted yoga poses at the park, and introduced herself to waiters with "Namaste." She'd become the spiritual aunt in a Hallmark movie, the one who returns home just in time for the Christmas bake-off and a surprise proposal. I came home that same weekend, not from Greece, but from a meeting with a guy who wanted a custom welded bike rack for his coffee shop. We discussed metal thickness while standing in the back alley next to a dumpster and an aggressive crow. When I walked into the house for Sunday dinner, I didn't expect confetti, but I also didn't expect to be ignored like a couch cushion. Mom hugged Ava like she'd returned from war. Dad opened a bottle of wine. I got a "hey bud" from the kitchen and a nod toward the folding chairs. "So what are you up to these days?" Ava asked between bites of imported olives. I paused. "Actually, I've been running a metal shop downtown. Kind of fell into it, but it's doing well." "Oh, wow," she said, blinking. "Like art." "Like fabrication," I said. "Custom work welding builds. Got a few regular clients." "That's cute." There it was, the dagger in a sweater. Cute in Ava speak meant not threatening like a lemonade stand or a hamster with a business license. Dad chimed in. "Still at that old workshop with Mr. Aldridge?" "Actually, I'm running it now," I said. "Took over the business, changed the name. We've got a new brand website, steady flow of jobs." He blinked. "You running the shop?" "Yeah, got 5 jobs booked this month. Might need part-time help soon." There was a pause. The kind where everyone pretends they're chewing, but really they're recalibrating their expectations. Then Ava laughed a tight, polite laugh and raised her glass. "Da Owen doing metal things." I clinked out of obligation, not celebration. The rest of dinner blurred. Ava talked about a wellness retreat in Portugal. I talked about sourcing steel from a guy who only communicates via emoji. She brought out a slideshow on her iPad. I showed them a photo of a fire pit. They oohed at hers. They squinted at mine like it was a medical scan. Later that night as I was heading out, Ava cornered me at the door. "Hey," she said, "just between us, you're really doing this shop thing." "Yep." "With like real clients?" "Yep." "And money?" "That's usually how it works." "Yeah," she chewed her lip. "Well, I've actually been thinking about staying here for a while, just to, reset." "Okay." "And maybe get into something creative, something grounded, something like what you're doing." I raised an eyebrow. "You want to weld?" She laughed. "God, no, but maybe help you run the business side. I took a branding course in Bali. I know about market presence." "Market presence?" "Yeah, you could use a touch of femininity, a vibe. Your logo looks like a Transformers reboot." I stared at her. "Are you asking for a job?" "No," she said quickly. "Just suggesting a partnership. I could help. You could let me help for money." She shrugged. "Just enough to live, and maybe a workspace with air conditioning, and maybe we could do an Instagram collab." The nerve! I almost laughed, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I nodded slowly. "Tell you what," I said, "send me your resume." She blinked. "My what?" "Your resume," I said, "with skills, experience, references, standard stuff." "You're serious?" "Dead serious," she scoffed. "Wow, so this is who you are now." "No," I said. "This is who I've always been. You just never looked past the barcode." Then I went back to the shop. Carl, the bandsaw, was waiting. It took her 3 days to email the resume. Technically, it was a Canva graphic titled Ava's Vibe Deck with sparkles. It featured pastel gradients, a list of core competencies that included visual alchemy and crisis softening, and 3 testimonials, 2 of which were Instagram comments and 1 from a guy named Brad X, but still supportive. I didn't respond. She showed up in person the next morning wearing platform heels, gold hoop earrings, and a white jumpsuit to a metal shop. She looked like someone who got lost on the way to a music video shoot. "Good morning, coworker," she announced. "Are you trying to die?" I asked. She frowned. "Excuse me." "Those shoes," I said. "The floor is concrete. The equipment weighs more than a smart car. The sparks are real." She waved it off. "I'm shadowing today, observing. I read an article that said immersing yourself is key to personal reinvention. You're 10 minutes away from personal incineration." But she insisted. Said she wanted to connect with the energy of small-batch industrial creativity. I offered her a welding hood. She asked if it came in matte black. I handed her the only one we had scorched, scratched, and covered in marker that said, "This is not a purse." She looked horrified, but she wore it. That morning, I let her sweep the shop. She documented it with a selfie. "First day in the shop, your girl is stepping out of her comfort zone and into her power." By noon, she was exhausted. "This broom is aggressive," she said. "It fights back." "That's gravity," I told her. At lunch, she refused the sandwich I offered because it wasn't Ayurvedic. Instead, she pulled out a Tupperware full of quinoa and raw beets. Bruno Aldridge's old shop dog sniffed it and walked away in disgust. She spent the afternoon rebranding my website from a laptop that somehow still had a cracked sticker that said, "Yoga Wine Naps." Her revisions included changing the font to something she called rustic minimalist and replacing the word welding with artisan flame crafting. By 300 p.m., she was asking if we had interns. "You are the intern," I said. That's when she cracked. "I don't get it," she said. "How are you successful? You don't even have a business degree. You didn't study abroad. You don't know what ROI stands for." "Sure I do," I said. "Return on ignoring nonsense." She scoffed. "You think you're better than me now?" "No," I said. "I just don't think I'm worse." She didn't reply, just stood there blinking like someone had thrown cold water on her TED Talk. For the first time I saw it, that flicker of realization, the gap between her curated life and my actual work, the years she spent floating through airports while I lifted pallets and fixed stripped bolts, the privilege of calling failure a detour while I called it Tuesday. That night she didn't ask for a ride home. She just walked heels in hand, feet dirty, silent. I didn't say anything, didn't gloat, didn't comfort. I just locked up the shop. Carl the bandsaw buzzed a little louder than usual, like he approved. 2 days after Ava's meltdown, the shop got quiet again. Peaceful even. No discussions about vibes, no repackaging steel as energy sculptures. No Canva pitches about vision alignment, just sparks, sawdust, and the occasional cursing when I dropped something heavy on my foot. I didn't hear from Ava, and honestly, I didn't expect to. I figured she'd book a flight to somewhere with good lighting and weak accountability. That was her pattern, try-wilt. But then the email came. Not from her, from a guy named Luke Talbot, owner of Talbot Coffee, a trendy cafe chain that had somehow turned plywood countertops into a lifestyle brand. He wanted a quote on a set of custom outdoor benches, something durable but aesthetic, sleek, industrial, warm. A unicorn request, basically. He'd already received 3 bids, 2 from big-name fabrication shops in the city, and 1 from a design agency that offered to make the benches out of reclaimed ski lift parts. But someone, probably Aldridge's friend, had recommended me. I sent a mock-up, a budget breakdown, and a note that said, "No gimmicks, just steel and sweat, and maybe a little fire." I expected nothing. 3 hours later, he called. "You're hired," he said. "You were the only one who didn't pitch me a brand story. I just want benches." We shook hands the next day. It was the biggest job I'd ever landed. 5 figures, tight deadline, full creative control. And if it went well, every Talbot Coffee location in the region would get the same benches built by Groundline. I told Aldridge. He grinned, nodded once, and went back to cleaning a vise. The man had the emotional range of a toaster, but I could tell he was proud. I worked 14-hour days that week designing, cutting, welding, finishing. I sanded until my knuckles looked like forgotten raisins. My arms throbbed, my back mutinied. But every time I looked at the blueprints, I felt like I was building more than benches. I was building proof. Proof I wasn't a fluke, proof that I could outbid and outbuild people with fancier logos and corner offices. I finished 4 days early, delivered them in a rented trailer covered in tarp, still warm from the final clear coat. Luke loved them. So did his staff. He took 1 photo, posted it on the Talbot Coffee Instagram with the caption, "Built local, built right, built by someone who shows up." My phone blew up, shares, DMs, inquiries. Someone from a distillery asked about bar stools. A local park board wanted signage. Even a furniture designer emailed asking if I collaborated. I stared at the inbox like it had grown legs. And then right on cue, my phone rang. "Ava?" I let it go to voicemail. She called again. Then she texted, "Saw the Talbot benches. They're amazing. Seriously. Proud of you." Then another. "Also, if you're hiring, I'm still interested. No Canva this time. Promise." I stared at it for a long time. I didn't respond. Not yet. I had work to do, the kind that didn't require glitter fonts or hashtags, just calluses and grit. She showed up on a Tuesday. No heels, no Instagram-ready outfit, just jeans, sneakers, and a hoodie that looked like it had seen real laundry detergent and not just dry shampoo mist. I was grinding down welds on a trellis order when I heard the shop door creak. She peeked in like a kid sneaking into a classroom late. "Hey," she said, voice small. No sparkle. I didn't say anything at first, just lowered my face shield and let the grinder spin down. She held up a coffee. "For you," she said. "Decaf, I think I forgot to ask." I took it anyway. She didn't walk in until I nodded. She didn't touch anything, just stood near the wall like she didn't know if she was welcome. "Look," she said, "I know I've been a lot." "Uh-huh." I came in loud and clueless, and maybe a little condescending. I was going to say performative, but sure, that too. She shifted on her feet. "It's just, I thought I had it figured out. My path, my journey. You know, your vibe deck." She winced. "Yeah, that." She took a deep breath. "I've had 100 jobs, pitched 1,000 ideas. None of them stuck. None of them felt like this." She waved a hand toward the shop. "The heat, the noise, the smell, it's called progress," I said. "Or melting paint." "Either one," she laughed softly. "I used to think work was supposed to be effortless, that if it was hard, it meant you were doing the wrong thing. And now? Now I think maybe hard means it's real, that it matters." I watched her carefully. This wasn't a pitch. This wasn't a branding campaign wrapped in self-awareness. This was Ava stripped down, no performance, just a girl who'd floated too far and finally wanted to touch ground. "I don't need a title," she said, "or a corner office or an Instagram feature." "Good," I said. "We don't have corners, just steel racks and Bruno's dog bed." She smiled. "Let me help, however you'll let me." I didn't answer right away because I wasn't sure what she was asking, for a job, a chance, or something older, something we both left behind when she boarded her first plane and I clocked into my first graveyard shift. So I gave her the smallest job I had, cataloging scrap, dirty, boring, blister-inducing. She didn't flinch, didn't complain, didn't Instagram it. She just nodded and got to work. And when I peeked over an hour later, she was elbow-deep in copper coils, humming a song I didn't recognize, face smudged with dust and focus. And I thought, maybe this isn't about redemption. Maybe it's just about rebuilding, not our careers, our us. A few weeks passed. Ava didn't quit, didn't ghost, didn't turn the shop into a boho industrial Pinterest board. She showed up early, stayed late, swept without being asked, stopped naming things like the vision zone, and started asking where the shop vac was. She even got used to Bruno, who once growled at her essential oil diffuser and hasn't trusted her since. We didn't talk about the past much. There was no dramatic heart-to-heart. No remember when moment under a workbench spotlight. Just slow recalibration, like two magnets learning how to line up after years of spinning the wrong way. One Thursday, after we loaded a trailer full of planter stands for a landscaping company, she turned to me and said, "You know what the difference is between this and all the stuff I used to do?" I wiped sweat from my eyes. "Less coconut milk." She laughed. "That and this feels earned. It hurts, but in a good way." I nodded. "That's the metal in your lungs talking." She flicked a nut at me. That weekend, Mom invited us both over for dinner. We hadn't done that in months. I almost didn't go. I expected the same awkward toasts and questions about whether Ava had found her next destination. But when we arrived, something weird happened. Dad asked about my business. Mom said the benches at Talbot Coffee were very modern, which in her world is basically a 5-star review. And Ava, she let me talk. She didn't interrupt, didn't add buzzwords, didn't correct my phrasing. She just passed me the salt and smiled. That night I got a text from her. "Thanks for letting me come back." I stared at it a long time. We weren't fixed. We weren't suddenly siblings of the year, but something had shifted, and not the kind of shift you post about. It was small, quiet, but permanent. The next morning I opened the shop early. We had a custom staircase frame to finish. Bruno stretched out on a pile of rags. Ava walked in 5 minutes later with 2 coffees and a bucket of bolts. "You ready?" she asked. I nodded. "Let's get to it." She paused. "Owen." "Yeah," she smirked. "Can I pitch one idea?" I groaned. "If it involves rustic font, I swear." She pulled out a notebook, sketched a new logo. Simple, clean line welded into a rising sun. It wasn't bad. It wasn't glitter. It was solid. I nodded. "Let's weld it," I said.